Hello, everyone. So today I want to talk about a few of the spiritual techniques that I have for overcoming depression. Now, depression is a feeling that a lot of people get, but it becomes a disorder when it's perpetuating and it doesn't seem to really have a source. Now, even if it does have a source, these techniques will help. But the depression I'm talking about is more of a chemical imbalance that kind of plagues some people. Not a large percentage of the population, but a certain percentage. And there are ways to deal with it that are of a spiritual nature. There are spiritual practices and or techniques that can help you through these times when you're feeling depressed or you're trying to cope with a depression that doesn't really seem to have a source. And I've developed them over the years. The main one that I want to mention first and foremost, the one that has helped me the most, is meditation. No matter what you believe, if you're Christian, Hindu, Muslim, atheist, agnostic, universalist, or you simply have a different kind of religion that I'm talking about. If you're an individualist, if you just have a philosophy and you're not really sure what you believe as far as religion goes, even if it's a lack thereof, there are ways to meditate for all of these different kinds of belief systems or lack thereof. And the one I'm about to talk about as far as the meditation goes is one that anybody can use. What you have to do in order to basically develop this technique that can help you if you're depressed is you have to bring yourself to a state where you're not having the constant onrush of thoughts, especially negative ones, but just thoughts in general. And we don't really, this might sound strange, but we don't really have a good way of telling what thoughts are going through our head at any given time, because a lot of the small thoughts, a lot of the minor thoughts, a lot of the thoughts that we don't really register are not easily perceived by someone who doesn't really know how to look at their thinking processes. For instance, we might be meditating and we might have tiny little urges of thoughts that say, okay, well, this isn't going so well, or I'm not focused enough, and it may not be even a coherent sentence, but it's more of a feeling, and that's still a thought. Now, one thing that has helped me tremendously in being able to perceive these tiny thoughts, these tiny brain patterns that we don't really keep track of consciously until we know that they're there, which most people don't, is Muse. And the Muse headband has really helped me really single out the small thoughts that go on, even underneath the main thoughts, even when I'm not having big thoughts. This headband basically tracks and registers when you're having any thought at all. Now, the thoughts that make a big wave in your head are going to have the biggest spike in the Muse app that you use on your smartphone. And you can see that later on, but mainly it feeds you a constant stream of information on the intensity of your thoughts through either wind. You can choose wind, you can choose birds chirping, or rain. And when you're having a especially extreme thought that's having a big effect in your brain, the rain will pick up, or the birds will really start cheeping a lot, or the wind will really pick up. And when you're having really small thoughts like the ones I was talking about, it'll just be a little bit. And basically you monitor this as you're meditating, and it feeds you that stream of sound. And I usually meditate sitting on a cushion. You can sit on a chair, but mainly the point is to have your spine basically erect, as basically in a not necessarily a tense erection of the spine, but kind of just a straight back. But you don't have to hold it with intensity. And then I rest my hands on my knees like this. And of course you have to have your eyes closed, or that's what a lot of people in the West do, that's what we do. In the East, really, you're supposed to have your eyes open just a little bit. But another point I want to make is that when you're meditating, it really helps to focus on this part. If you're looking with your eyes up to this part of your head, basically the center of the temporal lobe, the front part of your brain, that raises a lot of energy in your spine. Energy that you can feel eventually if you're attuned to it. But what you need to learn is the ability to, even though you have these thoughts, and this is why Muse is so helpful, how to get rid of them once they pop up. And it's not about, and it describes in Muse, and this is the way that I like to describe it, is that when a puppy does something bad, you don't hit it, you gently coax it into doing the right thing. And eventually the mind, if you treat it like a puppy, where if these little thoughts or big thoughts pop up and you just kind of coax it back into not having any thoughts, and learn how to do that, learn that feeling, then eventually the mind will be able to do it more effectively. Your mind will be able to do this more effectively. And you can do it without Muse, of course. Muse is like $300. If you don't have $300 to spend, I understand. But just practice meditating and try not to have any thoughts at all. Feel like there's this big space in your brain, and you're not even maintaining that space. You're just allowing that space to exist, and not letting anything else into that space, and whether it be small thoughts or big thoughts. Now, I'll move on to another technique. You can look up all kinds of techniques for meditation. Even breathing is very important too. Basically, breathe in and out slowly and consistently, but very to a certain magnitude. You don't breathe in heavily one time and then breathe out heavily that time, and then breathe in slowly. I mean, to very small degree in your lungs, and then breathe out very small degree in your lungs. Kind of keep it even and keep it deep and not quick. That's usually how I do it. I'm describing it very simply. But I'll move on to another technique. Another technique that I would recommend for overcoming depression, as far as spiritual techniques go, is being able to chant mantras. Now, this really raises your level of energy that you feel in your mind, and it uplifts your spirit. And when I say spirit, if you don't believe in spirit, it uplifts your mood. Let's put it that way. Now, one of the mantras that I use is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and that means I bow to the Lord who exists and who's in the hearts of all. And if you don't want to chant mantra religiously, you can just use the very universal and very calming syllable, though it is Hindu, Om. Basically AUM, but and the American version of it, but very long and pronounced and even, one after the other, and it should lift up your mood. Let's say you start out with 10 times. If you want to raise it to higher, you'll start to see how your mood is a little bit higher and higher. But mantra is more religious, spiritual oriented, so I want to move on to another technique that atheists can use with comfort, and that would basically be